YouTube, Amelia here. Somebody that I've known since elementary school asked me how it was that I quit smoking. I was a smoker from when I was about 12 years old, maybe 11. It was like 5th, 6th grade summer. I don't know when I started smoking all the time, but it was pretty quickly. So 11, 12 years old until I was 28, and I quit smoking pretty much overnight when I started trying to have a baby. So the first thing that you need to know about this story and about all stories that you hear when people talk about being successful is that we are subject to something called the narrative fallacy. This is a concept that Nassim Taleb came up with. I believe that's how you say his name. And pretty much it's that we try to make sense of our lives, so we knit together a whole bunch of things to give ourselves a comprehensive, a cogent story, something that rings true for us. We leave out anything that doesn't fit our narrative, and really, a lot of these things won't have a lot to do with each other. They don't necessarily have to do with our success, everything like that. That being said, I do think that the 3 things I'm going to talk about legitimately helped me quit smoking. And it jives well with research that I've read and personal development people that I listen to. So first, let me say, already I've been subject to the narrative fallacy, but I did say pretty much overnight. So in reality, I tried to quit for a while before I actually quit. But that is, I tried to quit for a while knowing I wasn't going to be able to before I moved to Florida to be with my boyfriend and start having kids. I knew I wanted to quit before I came here, but I knew that the environment just wasn't right for me to be able to quit smoking. So I did try for like a month or 2 before I actually quit, but my environment changed. So, hey bud, do you want my water bottle? You can have it. So I will get to that point a little bit later, which environment's very important. My first point is going to be that one thing that stops us from making the changes that we need to make in life is our sense of identity. When we invest our identity in something, that it's very hard to move away from it. When I was 15 years old, I used to try to picture myself going to college and walking across the campus, and I was never able to do that without thinking of myself with a cigarette in my hand. So for a long time, I tried to just practice thinking of myself as someone who smokes rather than a smoker. This is true also with depression and anxiety. I tried very hard to intellectually at least grasp that I wasn't a depressive. I was just somebody who had depression or behaved in a depressive manner. So decoupling your identity from things that you do that you don't like is very helpful. So is coupling your identity with things that you want to be like. So starting to say like, I'm a healthy person, I'm an exerciser, things like this. That being said, the best way to do these things, the way that your brain decides who you are, is by seeing what you do. The same way that other people do. You can tell somebody, I'm a healthy person, but if they see you smoking and drinking, they're going to go, oh, well, it doesn't matter what they say, this is what they do. Your brain does the same thing for you. So how can you decide you're not a smoker? Is really by not smoking. But I think for me, I believe that already having teased those apart intellectually, even though not emotionally, was helpful in breaking the habit. Number 2 is what I touched on earlier, which is your environment, particularly who you hang out with. Starting when I was about 17, maybe 18, I stopped dating people who smoked. And when I was 20, I moved to a different country and I stopped making friends with people who smoked, largely. I had 1 or 2 people that I knew who were smokers that I created friendships with over the years, but mostly I tried to stay away from people who were like me in any way that I didn't really like being. I stopped really trying to make friends with anybody with depression or anxiety, where at one point I wanted to feel understood around people. At some point I heard the one thing all happy people have in common is that they hang out with other happy people. I was like, that I can do. I think I have enough to offer to be around people with a much more positive outlook than I do. So who you hang out with makes a big difference. Jim Rohn says you are the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with most. And there's been a lot of research about like obesity and smoking and stuff like that. If you hang out with smokers, you're more likely to be a smoker. If you hang out with people who are obese, you're more likely to be obese, and that actually even creates concentric circles outwards. If you have a friend of a friend who's obese, you're more likely to be obese. How they did these studies, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people cite them before, but I'm like, who doesn't know anybody who knows somebody who's overweight? I don't know if those people exist in America. Point being, who you hang out with matters a lot. And that's again because it's attached to identity. Who you hang out with is a signifier for who you are. So once you stop doing something that your circle, your social circle does, you're no longer going to feel like part of the group, and that's going to affect your relationships, and that makes quitting smoking very hard. One interesting example of this is a woman that I knew. She got invited to the Marlboro Ranch. Hi, Jennifer. She got invited to the Marlboro Ranch, and what they do when they have the sweepstakes winners is they invite people all from the same area. And they say, so you guys can know each other when you get back, which is true. But the bigger way, the big thing that this really is to create lifelong customers. If your whole social group smokes, if you make friends with more smokers, you're going to become less and less likely to quit. So this is just a good marketing. This is good business, what they did. So decoupling your identity, getting away from social circles that are smokers, which is easier said than done, of course. People have very strong connections with the people that they love, and a lot of people are partners with other smokers. So it's hard to overcome, but that's why you're supposed to quit with your friends, with your family. Somebody's about to knock on the door right now. I think they might have just walked away. Okay, and the last thing is actually just figuring out what you value. So this, like the other things, it's so much easier to say than to do. For me, when I had a kid, I always knew that when I had a kid, I would want to quit smoking, and I was able to do that. And again, I believe because I had a couple of these other things in place, like the social circle the social circle that didn't do that, and the personality not really connected to it, it made this valuation a lot easier. I didn't have myself pulling in so many different directions. There was just one direction to go. So really what everything comes down to is, what do you value? Not what do you say you value, not what do you think you value, not what do you wish you valued, but what do you actually value? And we can see what you actually value by the actions that you take. I don't believe, a lot of people think that, it's information that helps people. And in a way, I'm making this video, I'm contributing some information. So I do believe, and I'm a huge reader, I do believe information is helpful, but I think information is a very small piece of the puzzle for behavioral change. So the biggest thing is what you value. No amount of information is going to convince somebody, it doesn't matter how much I tell you heroin is bad for you, you're going to keep doing heroin. It's not that. And when I was a smoker and I didn't want to quit smoking, it wasn't, people would say, that's bad for you. Like, oh, is it bad for me, right? The information isn't what we need. Same thing with really any good habits, right? We know we have to exercise. We know what good diet looks like. Point being, it's values usually, not information. So how do you get your values set up right? I think the book Easy Ways to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr is actually really good. Now, I read this book about 2 years before I quit smoking, and I do, again, think that it contributed to a frame of mind that made it so that when I was ready to quit, I could. So what is it that smoking gives you, and what does it not give you? Now, I want you to think in terms of, what do you lose by smoking? The human brain has a little cognitive bias we're loss aversion. We're much more afraid of losing things than we are happy to gain things. So don't think about like, I'm gaining health, right? I can be healthier, right? Think about how you're losing years off your life. Think about what it might mean for your children if you smoke. I think that that's usually one of the biggest one. I think I'd have to look up the statistics on it, but the likelihood of your child becoming a smoker is much, much higher if you're a smoker. Now, those statistics are going to change over time because there's less smokers in the millennial generation than the generation before it, but it does have an effect. Children are excellent at doing what you do, not doing what you say. So write down everything that you gain from smoking and everything that you lose, like all the times that you have to. You might think there's a lot of things that people think when they're smokers that they really like, oh, well, I have an excuse to go outside for 15 minutes when I'm having a bad time socially. I used to think that with my anxiety a lot. But as it turns out, I could have just left at any time for any reason, right? So try to make sure that you're honest with yourself about your reason, what you're really gaining, and whether or not you couldn't gain those same things not being a smoker. If, for instance, smokers are allowed smoke breaks at your work, but non-smokers aren't, you are allowed them. You can just talk to your boss about that. It's not fair for them to incentivize smoking. So those are the three big things. Now I want to say again, the environment point is very important, right? I was trying to quit and it wasn't until I came here. Now I did try to set up that environment. I didn't tell my boyfriend that I was a smoker at first because I was hoping that, you know, once there was an expectation set that I wouldn't be able to do it. So I did have that in mind. But until it was really push comes to shove, I need to quit smoking because we're starting to get pregnant and I have somebody who will penalize me for smoking, I wasn't able to do it. So to whatever extent it's possible, set up penalties for yourself for not doing the things that you're supposed to do. Environmental, strong social penalties are the best ones that you can get. Other people respond very well to monetary incentives. Is there somebody that you can pay every time you smoke a cigarette? What is it that's going to make the cost of smoking higher to you than just what it is to satiate your desire to smoke? That might be monetary, emotional, whatever it is. Figure out what it is. Try a couple of different things. You won't necessarily get it right the first time. You might think if I have to pay $10 every time I smoke a cigarette, that's going to be a problem. Find somebody that actually will hold you accountable and don't say like, hey, yeah, I'm trying to sort of do this thing. Do you think maybe you could help out for a while? Okay, your dedication does matter and you need to tell somebody like, hey, give them an incentive to be honest with you. So don't make it somebody who like you're sharing your wallet with if you're going to use a monetary incentive. You know, your best friend, hopefully one that's not a smoker. Every time I smoke a cigarette, I have to give you $10. Don't be a liar to your friend. Have them ask you, have them check in on you so that you have to straight up lie to somebody you really care about or give them the money. You know, again, make the price that you have to pay for smoking higher than it is. And again, if you look through what you're really gaining from smoking, you're gonna see that the price you're paying is already pretty high. So that's like 3 or 4 things that I would say it seems correct to me contributed to being able to quit smoking. I hope that's useful and I'll see you later.